What are some specific examples of racism you have seen or experienced based on the definition of racism we have presented?
They had a white man carrying an open carry gun, and they had a black man carrying an open carry gun.
We watched a documentary, and there were black people, like they went and got skeptics who didn't believe that they weren't given the same privileges.
And while the white man, he was carrying the open carry gun, the police stopped him, kind of questioned him, but they let him go. Well, the black men, they instantly got out of the cars, took out their guns, and pinned them down.
And they got them to fill out a resume that they put their African American, they put their name, they put stuff like that, everything on there, their information. And then they filled out another one with a different name, all the same qualifications, and they said they were white. They were getting calls for these fake resumes, while the people that were black who had the exact same qualifications, nobody called them, nobody tried to approach them to see if they could have the job.
When you think about an institution, it could be church, it could be school, the library is an institution, okay? Think about the institutions in which you are involved. Are there instances of racism, direct or indirect?
The police system, I guess, since we've had a lot of problems with it lately, they're abusing their power and taking rules and making them their own and putting it in their own hands instead of listening to the law.
Within the public schools of Baton Rouge, you can still see segregation, because if you look at public schools versus private schools, you will see a huge divide. You can see mainly black people are going to the public schools, and mainly white people, in Baton Rouge at least, are going to the private schools.
Racism is an opinion without fact, I guess. It's just that they have power. It's not really facts that they're feeling, it's just how they feel. And racism is when they have power to carry out how they feel.
Since racism has institutional backing, what changes do you think could be made to the institution that could end racism?
Make the community more diverse, make the whole institution more diverse, so that you get an institution that equally represents the community.
Diversity would help, because a lot of racism starts from prejudice and stereotypes, like there was in racial prejudice. It mostly starts from stereotypes, and you can stop stereotypes from starting if you actually know about people. If you actually go interact with other people and you learn how they are, and you learn that they aren't all this one way, then there won't be a stereotype that creates prejudice.
Racism still kind of takes place without just killing people, because if you don't have fair opportunities, so you don't get the same choices. You can never make yourself, your family want better for your children. It will never get better if there's not fair opportunities between you and other people.
If you add more diversity, for example to the police force, that can actually create more trust within the community, because there are certain people that without diversity might be I don't feel like this police force is representative of me, so I don't trust it. So then you end up with the killing of the police officers, because you have that distrust within the community of the police force because of their non-diversity.
What do you think you guys could do in the institutions in which you're involved that can make a change, whether it's small or large?
For Lee High, about the changing of the name because of how it represents a Confederate general. That's I actually spoke up in that. That's one way I can participate in democracy and helping change the institutional racism in our society.
Speaking up and making sure that you're not letting any racism happen, whether it's your coach treats somebody else different, or letting somebody know what they're doing and what's wrong about it, or they're ignorant of something that they think they know, and just speaking up and letting people know.
The LGBT lesbian,
yeah, that's it.
That, they kind of went about it the right way, and they've been able to change something that a lot of people don't disagree with, but it's the way you go about doing it. So as a lot of people have problems with the protests and stuff that we have going on, because it's not the right way that you go about doing something. You have to have like correct reasoning behind it, go to court. Like, you can't just go out there and stand on the like property screaming at police officers and think, oh, they're just gonna start thinking about it and change. You have to put yourself like in a position to be able to change it.
One of the myths that they talk about that keeps racism in place is this myth that wherever a person ends up, he or she earned that. They got what they deserved. And if we say that we can look at anyone and say you got what you deserved because you worked for it, that really isn't taking into consideration that people are starting out at all different places and people have all different types of advantages or disadvantages.
Throughout the whole list, I could point out stuff like that I know black people have talked about. Like, I know one of them, it says I can go buy postcards, blah, 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 other stuff, with almost most of them having my color race on them. And I've heard black people talk about that, like, if they want to buy a doll for their little girl, they have to go search for a doll of her complexion, because most of the dolls are white. Like, they have to go search for a black doll. Now it's a little bit different, but like with postcards and picture frames, whenever you go buy one, there's always white people in them first.
We read this article about it, that we can be aware of it. Is there any value in being aware of it?
White people kind of do it, I guess, since they weren't taught about it, and they're ignorant of the fact. It's kind of subconscious to them. They don't really go around thinking about it. It's just how they live their lives.
The author was actually a white woman, and these are things that she's realized as being a white woman in society. So she wrote out this list of 49 different observations that she's made as being a white woman and how she's privileged in society. And just look through a couple of the numbers and just speak out about one number that really caught your attention and why it caught your attention.
I chose 6.
6.
I can
Okay,
turn
6.
on the television or open the front of a page of a paper and see people of my race widely represented. Like Elena said, when you look at a picture frame, you'll see a white person, not a black one.
Leo?
7.
Okay.
When I am told about our national heritage or about civilization, I'm shown that people of my color made it what it is. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of what we hear we're told that it was made by us, but really a lot of it, the railroad, for example, not made by us. It was made by all the Asians and everybody on the railroad, and a lot of what we built, it was built by the slaves.
I was watching this video on YouTube, and they had black and white people on it, and they had to choose a doll of which was pretty, and they chose the white doll because that was represented in media society. So,
How is admitting privilege different from admitting privilege of whiteness different from admitting disadvantage of color?
Because if you're white and you're letting everybody know that you have an advantage, it made your life so much easier, and it was really helpful. And you know it's wrong, but you don't want to give it up because that helped me. And looking at how they're disadvantaged, why would I want to be on equal terms with them?
Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I'm sorry. Dear everyone who isn't a middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry. I have started life at the top of a ladder while you were born on the first rung. I say now that I would change places with you in an instant, but if given the opportunity, would I?
I feel like it was just trying to wake people up so they could like share, because one person, they can do a lot, but they can't do everything.
Yeah, what do you mean wake them up?
Well, some people just are blind to what's going around, or they just shut it off.
Then we might come to some form of like, almost in a way, of like saying that we can work together to help make this better if everybody was just able to wake up. But that's not going to happen within a few days. That'll take a long time.
What did you think about the metaphor, the ladder, being on the rungs of the ladder?
Making a ladder a bridge. What does that mean to you?
When I heard that first, I thought of like, instead of building walls, let's build bridges. That's the first analogy kind of thing that I thought of, like building bridges between everybody so that we can kind of all become in harmony, kind of peaceful. That's the first thing I thought of when I thought of bridges and ladders.
With the bridge, it's easier for everybody to get across and end like equally. It's not just I'm at the top and I'm over everything.
It's like on a rung of a ladder, you can fit less people than on an entire bridge.
If Peggy McIntosh, the author of this article, came to you and said, okay, let's come up with a couple more things for this list, is there anything else that you would add?
Like they'll say, oh, like these people, they're going towards like the black people, but it's not just the black people. It's also other minorities.
So people of color in general? Yeah, I agree with that.
Actually, a white person can say a lot of things that they want to say about like whatever they want within, even if it has to do with racial stereotypes, and say it's just a stereotype and nothing will happen to them. They can feel comfortable saying whatever they want.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, say that again.
A lot of white people can feel comfortable saying a lot of what they want to say. Because of our privilege.
My mom, she was like saying to my dad that if he were to reach under his chair to get his wallet because maybe it fell, then the police wouldn't think of any of it, but like, or nobody in general wouldn't think any of it, you know. But if like someone of color were to reach down, they would think something negative.
One example I have was actually today. So I went to my camp today, right? And one kid was kind of, well, it was Monday or Tuesday. Monday, yeah. And one kid was kind of like saying, and this was very standing out. He said he was all black people say the N-word, and then he just said it's just a stereotype. And nobody ran after him for it.
Yeah. No offense, but
Yes.
I'm not a racist, but
A lot.
what's coming after the butt?
Something offensive.
That sounds kind of racist. I guess, like in a good way, to use it in a good way. I guess like what she was talking about, she was like she could get somebody to publish this piece. Or I forgot which number it was. I forgot which number it was. But on here it says that she could almost definitely go and find somebody that would help her publish this because she's white. And while she's using white privilege, she's trying to use it for a good cause. And it's like other people could do that too. Like they could go get in a position of power and be really, like they could have a position that lets them influence people and they could bring this up. And because people respect that person, they're gonna start thinking about it. And they're gonna start wondering whether they have white privilege or like how they could change it and stuff like that. Like if a white person does that, yeah, they did use white privilege to get there and do that, but they're using it for a good cause.
When you think about those examples and what it means, how could someone use it positively?
I guess they can put in policies that equally treats everybody across that they serve.
So you could make policy changes.
They could make sure that who they hire, like let's say they're a CEO and they started their own business, blah blah blah. They can make sure that who they hire is hired because of their credentials and not who they are and not what race they are, but because of their credentials and because they know what they're doing and because they're trustworthy.
It's kind of like that show The Voice where like they face backwards and while the person is saying, and it doesn't matter if they're fat or skinny or white or of color or whatever their race is.
Because you're just basing it on their qualifications. Those are excellent examples. We're at the midpoint. Oh, did you have one more thing to add?
One more thing to add. So how I talked about what I said about the prison settings and how you were a lot more likely. What actually came with the jobs before we had this law that said that you had to check off if you had been a convict or not, and recently that had been taken away, right? That whole job thing to where black people were less likely to get taken was actually risen up the second they took away that thing, because even though they didn't have to check it, they were immediately assumed to be more likely to be convicts than white people were.
Wow, so it backfired.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
So now you're getting white convicts that are able to get jobs easier than black people who did nothing at all. But just because of racial prejudice, the people of power use that racial prejudice to not have them get a job.
And that goes back to what?
Institutional power plus racial prejudice equals racism.
There you go. Excellent, Leon. Excellent.
The fact that I am white, I had the privilege of knowing that my parents are more likely to succeed in what they do in their job, so I can live a comfortable life in my home. We can say things, which was a point I brought up, without being punished, most of the time. Because I'm a white male, I can get paid higher than most people can when I have a job. I am more likely to rise higher in society and to get jobs such as CEO. I am more likely to get positions of power in government. I don't have to feel that I need to participate in equal rights movement, even though I might realize that there's racism. I am not given constant glances in stores. I can have the safety of knowing that I can run without getting suspicious looks on the street.
So one example that I thought of was Donald Trump. Like, he gets away with saying a lot of stuff, and like, if Barack Obama said it, he would get a lot of backlash. And even like with Donald Trump's wife, Elena brought up how her speech was very similar to Michelle Obama's. Like, if Michelle Obama did that to a previous president's wife, she would like not get away with it because she's a black woman.
An actor off of Orange is the New Black, she was in first class, and she's been acting for a while. She has a lot of money. She goes in first class a lot. And there was a flight attendant who asked her, she was like, "Oh, you're in first class? It's great for you." It's like, if that was a white person, you just continue on through your day, like, oh, that's normal. They're always in here. But she stopped and went to that black lady and was like, "Wow, this is amazing. You're really in first class?" That's a privilege like white people have. They can go somewhere that's expensive, and people don't think that it's like a rare thing, or it's like wonderful, or it's out of the norm.
Okay, so as white privilege becomes something that more and more people in our society recognize, do you see that ending white privilege is a way to end racism?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Why?
Because even if you end white privilege, you're still going to have people that you're not going to, even if they recognize their own white privilege, they still might not want to get rid of it and be on equal grounds with somebody. And then you'll still have that position of power, but it opens up the way for a conversation about talk of change.